Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Alan Kadish, president of the Touro College and University System. And on behalf of Touro and the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. JCPA is the national network hub of 125 community relations councils and 16 national Jewish agencies. They convene the network to grapple with pressing issues of the day, build consensus policy, and then carry it out with other racial, ethnic, and faith influencers to build a just and pluralistic society. Touro and JCPA have a strong partnership, and we annually support and endorse their work to expose our students and the general public to important public affairs concerns. For a half century since our founding, Touro's mission has been to educate and promote the advancement of students from every culture, especially those from underrepresented communities. Touro's founder, Dr. Bernard Lander, played an important role in founding JCPA's predecessor in 1944. He was also one of 3 associate directors of the Mayor's Committee on Unity, established by former New York City Mayor Fiore LaGuardia, which became the city's first commission on human rights. The commission prepared the first civil rights legislation for New York State. Touro believes strongly in reaching out to and working with disenfranchised, underprivileged, and isolated segments of the community. Indeed, we believe that this is not merely a human obligation, but a Jewish obligation to do so. Touro has a number of programs also encouraging underrepresented students to enter graduate programs such as medical schools. And our New York area campuses, particularly its medical schools, have unusually high rates of minority enrollment. This is why Touro so strongly identifies with the bipartisan work of the Black Jewish Caucus. The important messages that this caucus sends by its very existence, its powerful messaging, and as exemplified by its leader, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. We are honored to chair today's webinar and very pleased to have with us today Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from Michigan, a founder of the Congressional Caucus on Black Jewish Relations. Congresswoman Lawrence was last with JCPA at a conference in February. It's hard to believe how much has happened in our country since then, and there's much to discuss. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored, and it's fulfilling to be able to have this dialogue.
That's great. So the first question I have for you is, what compelled you to take the leadership of the Congressional Caucus on Black Jewish Relations?
Thank you so much, Doctor. We are at a point in our history where we have been, I say, figuratively slapped in the face with what does democracy look like? What are the foundation, and what is the foundation, and what are the expectations of Americans? And so it goes without saying, during the Civil Rights Movement, the Jewish community stepped up, providing legal assistance, financial support, and literally hands on deck, were marching and protesting with Black America. It's during this time of this administration that I was really, my heart was broken. It's still being broken on a daily basis. When I saw some of the anti-Semitic and racist comments, and again, when we were together the early part of this year before the pandemic really broke, it is our shared history. And you cannot deny that, of the Holocaust, of slavery, where because of no fault of our own, the lowest values of people emerge to the fact that they could openly hate. Because both of these acts were very open and very deliberate, and a lot of people participated. And so we fought through that. The Jewish community has an amazing history of surviving through the Holocaust, with all parts of the horrific crimes that were committed. And so here we are today with, after slavery, after Jim Crow, fighting through civil rights. The two of us, the Jews and the African Americans, are the #1 target for racism, for anti-Semitic activities. And I said, what better time than us to do what we know how to do, and that's join arms, lock arms, and say above all the shouting and all the evilness that we will not tolerate racism. We will not tolerate acts of anti-Semitic racism, that we will stand together because we have this bond between us. And so the Jewish community, to me, as many of you know or may not know, I was the mayor of Southfield, Michigan, which for Michigan is one of the largest Jewish populations and influence in Michigan. And having the responsibility to protect and serve the Jewish community, I have learned uniquely that the Jewish community, your customs, your beliefs, you're my brothers and my sisters. And I can't tell you how much that bond has grown over the years. Now, being a member of Congress, I truly represent all the cities that are predominantly occupied by the Jewish community, places of worship, residency, schools. So I'm uniquely connected to the Jewish community. And the times have found us. I tell people this, and for the young people who are listening, this is very important that you hear this. Our history tells us that without invitation, without just like having all these meetings and caucuses to bring us together, we came together. I'm concerned today that I don't see the strong strength of our relationships. And I'm asking all the young people to really understand our history, and time has found us. And we have to move forward and fighting against racism, fighting against all of these horrific actions, because I believe in America and I think we can do better.
Yeah, that's certainly something we can all agree with. So the next question is that in recent months, we have experienced a global pandemic which has exposed inequities in healthcare, the killing of George Floyd and many others that spawned, as you mentioned, a new social movement. You've addressed this a little bit already, but in this environment, how can Black and Jews best cooperate to bring positive changes? I fully agree that we need to work better together, but are there some concrete steps that you think we can take to move forward together?
Being there for each other. I know when we had the shooting at the synagogue, I was in the synagogue here locally in Michigan, grieving and supporting and letting the Jewish community know that I see what's happening, it's not acceptable, and I will stand with you. When we had the shooting and the killings, and even Black Lives Matter, I've seen a number of the Jewish community standing with Black America saying, this is not acceptable. We see what's happening and we're going to have the courage to stand up and denounce it. I just wanted to go a little bit into the George Floyd Act. As a member of Congress, I'm a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. And we came together, the Democratic Caucus, on the hard work of the Black Caucus to write legislation. The bill will work to end racial and religious profiling. You wouldn't think you would have to pass a law for that, but we will. It will save lives by banning chokeholds and no-knock warrants. It limits the military equipment on our streets and require body cameras. If it were not for that citizen who used their camera to film what happened to George Floyd, I don't know if we would even be in this point, because it would be denials and it would be all of the things that go in, well, police officer said it, so it must be true. The body cameras take that away. There would be grants to community-based organizations to work with law enforcement and elected officials to redesign. And I want to be very clear. The rhetoric that's being used that Democrats wants to defund police. No, doctor and everyone that's listening, we want to redesign and reform policing in America. It will require that any police officer, because what was so sad about the crime that was committed on George Floyd, it was by an officer who had numerous complaints of excessive force, of being breaking rules and policies when it came to arresting, but no one paid attention. It's one of our own, the blue code and whatever. We would establish a task force that when a police officer is found guilty or there's complaints placed, that there would be a national database that the FBI can manage, and they can say, this officer needs to be retrained, he needs to be taken off of the street, or he or she, or we need to take their badge because they repeatedly violate their oath of office. This past Friday, we commemorated the 65th anniversary of the death of Emmett Till, the 14-year-old boy who was brutally lynched by white supremacists. This bill would also make lynching a federal crime, because what we witnessed, and I say this without apology, with George Floyd was a modern day lynching, where you put your knee on a person's neck, because lynching would put a rope around your neck and restrict your ability to breathe. And this was done with a knee. With COVID, Doctor, you know that we have seen a disproportionate effect of this virus on minorities, and COVID-19 has seen 40% of the deaths in America be by African Americans. So there's so many things you can pull back the onion on this one. Pre-existing conditions, ineffective health care, having more what's the word, biases in healthcare. I want to give you an example. We had unfortunately a member of the community who died from COVID, and his children said we took him to the emergency room 4 times before they kept him. 4 times, and they kept saying, just go home, you'll be fine. We have found with maternal mortality, with other issues that are happening in America, that Black and African Americans and minorities, Hispanics, Native Americans are treated differently in the healthcare system. And we even had Serena Williams talk about how she was treated. So it had nothing to do with status or wealth. It was clearly a bias that's in our healthcare system that's impacting so many of us. So COVID-19 has attacked the Black community in 2 areas, healthcare and economics. So I just had a round table because August was Celebrate Black Business Month. And I had these Black entrepreneurs who told me that, Congresswoman, our access to capital, we're denied more than any other group. Our ability to sustain ourselves during this pandemic, you're going to see almost half of all of the Black-owned businesses go under. So we have this public health crisis and we have this economic crisis. COVID-19 has been devastating to to our community.
So there's certainly a lot that we need to do, try to correct that, and I hope we can work together to do it. We have, however, seen, as you mentioned, a rash of anti-Semitic remarks from Black celebrities and athletes. We've also seen a courageous number of Black athletes and others condemn these remarks.
Yes.
And we've seen some of those who made the original remarks apologize.
Mm-hmm.
How should the Jewish community understand this? How is anti-Semitism out there, and what can we do about it?
Unfortunately, it's very common. And my grandmother taught me something. She says, a Black woman in America, Brenda, you're going to spend the majority of your life doing two things. One is forgiving people, because racism and discrimination is ignorance. And the other one is to, she says, educate people about what you're saying. What does that do to me? How does that affect me? What do you realize what you're really saying? And then the other one is so my job is going to be, as well as, you know, with the Jewish community, you do it so well, it's that constant education. The Holocaust Museum, thank God we finally got the African American Museum that tells the story to try to educate. And you want to bring the worst into those buildings so that they can really see and understand the history. So if you call me the N-word, what does that do to me? How does that make me feel? If I use anti-Semitic comments and stereotypes on you, what does that, from your struggle, there is this rawness in the Black and Jewish community that we fight so hard to heal and overcome, but it is there. And I know that sometimes I'll hear criticism that Black people are so sensitive when it comes to race. I think I have a legitimate reason to be. And the other thing my grandmother said, that, Brenda, you have to forgive, because if you don't, that hatred and that disrespect will consume you and you'll become one of them. And so I just want to be really clear that when I see it, you know, it's all those things like, if you hear the jokes, don't sit there and laugh about it, because it's not funny. And if I can use a quote from Martin Luther King, no one is free until everyone is free. And so I say to my Black members of the community, I say to my Jewish members of the community, that we're truly in this together. You can laugh at the racist comments about a Jewish person, but when you turn around, you're confessing racism yourself. And so Martin Luther King said, the lesson never changes, and justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. That was Martin Luther King. And so I would say to anyone, and none of us are perfect. You know, I remember we have a large Arab population. And I remember someone saying, you know, the Arabs. And I didn't think anything of it. I did not realize that that was a derogatory title. And once I learned that, I correct people all the time, that is not their ethnicity. They are not Arabs, you know. So it's a constant battle, but we're all in this together.
So I think your comments about the power of museums in education are amazing. I have to tell you, I had the chance to be at the National Civil Rights Museum last year in Memphis, of course, at the site of King's assassination, and it was extraordinarily powerful. It wasn't that I didn't know about slavery or racism before, but the experience was amazing. And so, and I do think it changed things. So I really do believe that working together with you, if we can increase education as we're doing today and as we continue to do, it really will make a difference. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Very well.
So you talked a little bit about this already, about one of the bills in Congress, but
Yeah.
what can Congress do to make America a safer and more equitable and just society? And what role can Blacks and Jews play in helping that?
So a couple things. We firmly believe hate crimes should be a federal crime with the maximum penalties. Unfortunately, we have an administration now that's stoking with dog whistles and all that, the hatred and the evil that rests in some. It was never a time where, well, there was a time, but recently years we always saw it's behind the dark curtain. No one wanted to be seen as being one of those people who were racist and hateful and disrespectful. They would hide. And now the curtain has been pulled back and it's okay to be that way. You're a good person. And now they're saying you're a patriot. I just wanted to bring something to light. So the young man who was 17 years old with the assault weapon who shot and killed 2 people literally walked in front of a police officer with the gun exposed and his hands up. They gave him some water. Now, George Floyd was killed. We just recently had the African American man who was shot in his back. He did not have a weapon in his hand. And today I'm hearing of another killing because he had a bag of clothes and he dropped it and there was a gun there. The assumption that of just going from 0 to instant kill when it comes to a Black man is it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable that this continues to happen. And as we speak, the president is going to Wisconsin, which we know is the governor asked him not to come, the mayor asked him not to come. We know the fact that he is, he's gonna only stir it up. But, you know, the lynching museum, I've been to the Holocaust Museum and here locally in Farmington Hills and also in Israel. I have attended numerous. Oh, I wanted to share this with you. I was in Germany, and you always talk about how you learn something new, Dr. Allen. I'm in Germany, and there's a museum there that this is keeps all the archives from the Holocaust. It's something that was so powerful for me was that what were the tools that Hitler used to convince an entire country to follow his hatred and his rhetoric. And I want to share this because it just floored me. I stayed in that part of the exhibit while my group had moved on because I just wanted to absorb more of this. He attacked the media. He told everybody the media was fake. It was not real. Because for you to be a dictator, the people cannot trust anything but what you're saying. In addition to that, he divided people. He took one part of the population and made them better, and everyone else were least, and they were wrong, and they deserved to be killed. They deserved to be stripped of their wealth. They deserved to be treated that way. And when you watch the photos in the museum of normal people just celebrating this hatred that he was spreading, it just made chills go up and down my spine. Like, what is happening in America? It's almost like he's following a book. And I'm sorry if you feel I'm an extremist, but it is not good, the direction we're going in this country. Has nothing to do with him being a Republican. It's his policies, it's his morals, his values. But we're going to keep fighting, and I feel strongly that the African American Jewish Caucus is, when I went to my colleagues, and the first person I went to was John Lewis, because if anyone got it, he got it. He would say, absolutely. He's, I cannot believe that we have not come together in Congress to join arms to fight this. He said, absolutely. I went to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I went to Lee Zellian, who we don't agree on a lot of things, but we came together on this. We had Mr. Hurd, who's now retiring from Texas, Congressman Hurd from Texas, who's now retiring. But we came together, and our kickoff, and I don't know if you were there, but there were others there. The room was packed, and they said they'd never seen a caucus kickoff with that much excitement. And so we have such an opportunity. If I could, Dr. Allen, because I know our times, I wanted to get some historical bonds. The Jewish people helped co-found the NAACP and the National Urban League, the Jewish community. The Jewish lawyers helped the NAACP Legal Defense Fund win a long battle against Jim Crow. A Jewish man wrote Strange Fruit, the iconic song about lynching that Billie Holiday made into a classic. Jewish activists fought and died alongside civil rights activists in the 1960s. A Jewish lawyer, Stanley Levinson, was one of Dr. King's most trusted advisors. And as Hitler was increasing his power in Germany, Howard University, a Black university, was there. As the doors were being opened to Jews in America, Howard opened its doors. Remarkably, Howard had twice as many Jewish applicants in the 1935 as it did Black applicants. And we all know that Howard is one of our amazing Black institutions. So I just wanted to share that.
So I think that's amazing. And the work you're doing to try to restore those days when we can work together to fight racism, to fight bias, is extraordinarily important. And on behalf of everyone, I want to thank you for it. And thanks for sharing your vision with us of how we can work together and reimagine society. And thank you to everyone who participated in the webinar today. If you want to know more about how to get involved or to support JCPA's work, please visit their website at jewishpublicaffairs.org, and please support the Congresswoman in her efforts to bring us together and to move society forward in a just way. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope we see better days ahead with the efforts like those made by Congresswoman Lawrence. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Stay safe.